Hello, hustlers and entrepreneurs. My name is Izu Nwachukwu, and this is my podcast, Real People, Real Business. On today's episode, we have an expert in real estate investment. This young lady has expertise in off-plan investment. She works with family offices, and she also has experience in wealth management advisory. She's worked in the UK and the UAE. Nav Takhar, welcome to Real People, Real Business.
Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. Now, before we go into your expertise and your knowledge about the real estate landscape in Dubai in terms of investment, you're here today to share what people need to know about investing in real estate. But I want to sort of take it back into your own career. You didn't start out in real estate. In fact, you started out as an entrepreneur yourself, and you were in the tech industry. So, and can you tell me a little bit about that, what you did as an entrepreneur in the tech industry?
Yeah, of course. So I actually started off in law. So I did that for a little bit. And then I went into, when I realized that I enjoyed the commercial side of things more, I went into B2B sales at Reuters, selling to institutional clients.
Right.
That kind of gave me a really good baseline, I guess, for when I then went on to start my own startup.
Okay.
And it was like an online marketplace.
Right.
So it connected people to gardeners. Really, really simple. That was a real kind of 0 to 1 type of startup.
Okay.
Proving the concept, looking at how to scale it nationally, which we did, but it was tough. So I think my real value proposition came in when I started at another startup called Turo.
Okay.
And that was based in the US, but
Right.
they were launching in the UK.
Okay.
So I headed up operations, and I think that's when I kind of learned the most I have in terms of running a business, unit economics, how data can help drive every single decision.
Yeah.
Whilst I was doing that, I actually started advising startups on raising capital, understanding their value proposition and what they could bring to the market, and understanding nuances in the market.
Okay. Fantastic. So you've gone from being an entrepreneur yourself, finding a gap in the market and offering a solution or a unique selling proposition for it. You've worked with startups and you've advised them on how to raise funds. So you've been able to connect them with investors. So what's drawn you to the real estate market in Dubai? What has brought you into this business now?
Yeah, so I think it kind of combines the two. So I always say that Dubai is pretty similar to a startup. It's a startup on its kind of high growth scale up phase. The entrepreneurship is really encouraged. It's ran like a company. So bold decisions, bold vision, all of those things are basically at the heart of Dubai. So that was what kind of attracted me to Dubai. And then I guess real estate is pretty much the most commercial sector you can go into.
Yeah.
And it makes complete sense. It's an asset class that through the ages people have invested in because it's tangible. You can get the liquidity out if you need to, but it's passive income and it compounds over time.
Yeah.
So when you combine those two things together, it was kind of a perfect new kind of challenge, you might call it, in terms of my next career step.
Okay, fantastic. So as we know, Dubai on the global scene, when it comes to real estate, is a hot cake. It's attracting investors. People are coming from all over the world to buy into the real estate and property of Dubai or the UAE in general. But what's making it, Dubai's real estate industry, what's making it attractive to investors? What's the catch here? Why are they all coming here?
I think, look, last year, 2024, you saw $100 billion of transactions. Those are kind of crazy numbers when you look at kind of the size of the population or even the size of the city. So there's obviously something that's being offered here that is kind of unprecedented. And that, for me, when I moved my family out here, it came to safety, quality of life, healthcare.
Yeah.
And in terms of obviously the tax efficiencies and everything else are things that people think are going to be the most attractive pulls. But once you kind of live out here, it's everything else that you realize that is something that you can't really live without.
Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right. I think, we have reports saying that I think 6.5 million millionaires moved into Dubai in 2024. And obviously those people who are high net worth individuals, they don't just move their money, but they also move their businesses, and they want to buy a place to stay. And I think you're right. What sets the UAE and Dubai apart from the rest of the global community when it comes to real estate is the ease of doing transaction, right? It's easy to come in and buy a property here. It's easy you don't get taxed as much if you want to look at it that way. And there's that safety as well in the city, right? But also, I think when you look at the sort of economics of what's happening in the world, this part of the world is sort of shielded from it. We don't have this massive, crazy fluctuation. So it's kind of like, do I put my money in here and tomorrow it's going to all be gone? Do I buy a property and it's going to crash? I think the governors and the rulers of this country are kind of making sure that that's stable and we don't have this uncertainty when it comes to the real estate market.
Exactly. I think there's a real misconception when it comes to Dubai and the Middle East, that it's kind of risky.
Yeah.
But when you look at the last 10, 15, even 20 years, Dubai is kind of like the Switzerland of the Middle East. People come here for it as a safe haven. So where before people used to see it as maybe a short to mid-term kind of investment, maybe they came alone, maybe they just invested their money here. Now the market's really maturing.
Okay.
With more and more families, I think over 200,000 people moved here last year alone.
Yeah.
That's a huge number.
We can see it in the traffic.
See it in the traffic. See it in the schools.
Yeah.
I think when you look at how many, like the lists of kids on waiting lists for schools, it's not just somewhere where people just come as a young professional anymore. Like actual families are moving out here.
Yeah.
It's legitimizing the market. Like I said, like when I moved my family out here, it's not really just a short-term plan anymore. You are looking at the next kind of 10 to 15 years.
Yeah.
So that's really shifted. And I think that's what's shifted in people's kind of mentality when they look at it as an investment as well.
Okay.
They're giving it more time as well now. It's not, I want to put my money in and I want to flip. It's not that market anymore.
Okay.
It's a compounding market.
Fantastic. So Dubai is a great place because of all these attributes it has, from safety to actually people settling down, having a great life now. For those people who are, I recently, probably in the last 6 or 7 years, started to understand that, investing in real estate is a good way to build wealth and security. But there's some people who are not certain about this. There's some people who are unsure. If someone's thinking about investing in real estate, what should they be looking out for? What's the right way to go? Should they be going off plan? Should they be going ready? Is it right for them to go into debt for it? To someone who has no clue, what would be your advice in terms of investing in real estate and then looking at it as a wealth builder?
Yeah. So first, it's getting the right advice. Anytime you are new to something, it's a case of getting as much knowledge and information as possible. So I think the key would be understanding someone's investment strategy. So why are they investing?
Yeah.
Like always, I think this is one of the things that I've always learned to ask along the way when it comes to any aspect of a transaction or a client. Like ask why 5 times.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
if the answer is still the same or
Yeah.
it evolves, then you
Yeah.
get to the real reason behind it.
Right.
So if someone's just wanting passive income and they want it straight away and you know, and they're looking at that's what they're wanting in the next kind of 2 years, then obviously the secondary market might make sense. You've got to then look at what are the other costs, which people kind of, they look at the high level number of, okay, average rental yields in Dubai might be 6.9%. But what is the actual cost of maintenance, of service charges, of everything else that might come with that, depending on the age of the property they're buying?
Yeah.
The reason I specialize in off-plan is because it is, you know, getting in early, securing a price per square foot that you're never going to be able to secure again if the market is obviously appreciating at the level it is. So again, if you're looking at capital appreciation, if you're looking at building that wealth, looking at holding that asset for a longer period of time, and then that strategy could be, okay, when it gets to a stage where I've kind of peaked it in a certain area or asset class, then I look at liquidating it and investing it in the next thing.
Okay. All right. So I think that sounds good. Like you said, it depends on what they're looking for. And getting that out of your client to say, okay, you're either looking for something that's a little bit more long-term or something that you just want to make quick money from when you flip it and move on, is a good way to approach things. But what if you spot a client who's doing it for the wrong reasons? For example, how do you steer them onto what they should be doing, or do you at all even steer them? Because you see a lot of people who would just sell you the property for the sake of selling you the property, and they'll promise you this ROI is 8% ROI and this, and like you mentioned, these costs will come in at a later stage and start to eat. So do you actually challenge your clients when they're investing in the wrong way?
All the time. I think it's really important to kind of set expectations early on. I think I've had clients who, just like you said, want to explore the market, understand that, look, these numbers are really, really good, and they want to be part of that. But their risk appetite might not be there. They might not want to invest in something that they can't physically see or isn't physically tangible yet. So, you know, you can see that kind of internal struggle sometimes with clients. And I do at that point say, look, it might just not be the right time or even the right type of investment for you. And I think that comes from really building that relationship with someone and understanding exactly what it is that they would be comfortable with. Because if you force something on someone, later down the line, that's going to come out somewhere else. And so I think there'll be plenty of people who have been advised that put your money in real estate, like it's so solid. There'll be plenty of people who will have been told, like, oh, look how much money I've made, you should do the same. But it comes down to each person's personality. And it's actually funny, I've set up a workshop for my team where we're going to look at kind of different profiles of people and the psychology of money.
Okay, fantastic.
And it's because someone who might be really kind of risk adverse wouldn't understand why someone sat there saying, why don't you just do it? You know?
Okay.
So it's that I think when you're first speaking to clients, it's really important to kind of set the scene of what the Dubai market is. I don't believe in pressure, but you know, you're familiar with it yourself, I guess. When these launches happen, they sell out within a day. You've kind of got to have your money ready in terms of what you want to do and a decision made, because if you don't, then it goes. To someone else outside of this market, they would think that's crazy. Like, why would I have to make a decision within 24 hours or even an hour? but that's just the market we're in.
Yeah, and I'm the latter. It takes me 6 months at
Yeah.
least to make a decision. I've done all the homework. I've gone and looked at the location. And when I get some of these real estate brokers that reach out to me, I was like, oh, you need to have your expression of interest and everything down. You need to put this deposit. And it's like, I stop them and say, listen, even if I was that interested in this thing, it will take minimum of 6 months.
Yeah.
So if it's gone, it's gone. And that's just what I'm comfortable with. And so I think to your point, majority of the people I come across don't have that mentality to say, okay, this is someone who's going to look at it this way. I actually do have a broker based out of the UK who I've worked with on a couple of properties. Shout out to Shola. And he gets it. I'll be like, listen, bro, it's going to take me 3-4 months to get my head around this. And then, 4 months later, we catch up and we can go back and forth for the next 2-3 weeks before I make a decision.
Yep.
So, and, he's assisted me in a couple of investments, but I think I don't get to see that much of that here. It's kind of like, oh, this is going tomorrow, and my WhatsApp is blowing up with all these invites, and you're being called to all sorts of open houses and stuff like that. And sometimes it gets overwhelming. It gets a bit crowded. You're not even sure which decision to take at the time.
Exactly. And I think it's really important in that scenario. I'm not a big supporter of the expression of interest. At the end of the day, the developers are huge businesses and they're very good at marketing. And if the product that they're selling is good, it will sell out.
Yeah.
Because there's people who are really, really experienced in the market who know a good deal when they see one. However, someone who's new to the market, and these are even kind of bigger clients that I've got who have pretty extensive portfolios in the rest of the world. It will take some time to just basically educate them on the market first about what it is that Dubai is all about and everything else, and then getting them comfortable with that. And then if the right opportunity comes up and then they're ready for it, then it's a different conversation.
Yeah.
It's at that point you've built that relationship with them. They're comfortable with it, and they're happy to kind of move quickly.
Yeah.
But it still takes that time frame beforehand. Okay.
So you mentioned something about some of your clients have a portfolio, and so this is something I want to touch on. So if someone's bought their first property, whether they bought it as an end user, what would be your advice in terms of them scaling up their portfolio? Would you advise them to actually build a portfolio if they're looking to build wealth? And if you're going to advise that, would you advise that to sort of look into one market or to spread their portfolio across different markets? Just again, because I'm of the belief that, especially with what happened with COVID, I think spread, don't put everything in one basket, spread your portfolio across different markets, because if one market crashes, the other one is still afloat, and vice versa. But I've met people who tend to think, listen, I'm in Dubai, I'm going to buy my properties in Dubai, and that's their approach to it. So I don't think there's a right or wrong, but, if someone is going to build wealth and if someone's risk adverse, first of all, would you say build a portfolio? And then would you advise to diversify?
Yeah. So I think first question in terms of expanding that portfolio, something that Dubai's done very well is remove all friction, I guess, in terms of like when you look at the payment plans and how they're structured. You can utilize those payment plans and your exposure at different times. And having quite an extensive portfolio by kind of taking advantage of those, whether they're kind of different kind of percentages that need to be paid pre-construction and then kind of on handover.
Right.
Financing. Now, this is always something that, I think depending on different cultures, it's one of those where some people have a taboo against kind of financing and leveraging. And then there's others who kind of look at it in terms of, well, why not? I'd say leverage no more than 70%.
Okay.
Because even if the market was to dip, and if it was to dip by 30%, then that's a pretty major dip verging on a crash.
Yeah.
But you can still withhold that that kind of dip.
Right.
So I'd say, that's the best way to kind of really build the portfolio. Something else you've got in terms of the Dubai market, which is the nuance at the minute, it's, I think, 70th in the world in terms of price per square foot. However, it's one of the top 10 cities in the world. So the price point in terms of per square foot hasn't caught up with the status of the city. So if someone's looking at building out their portfolio slowly, they're going to be eating into their capital appreciation and capital potential over the next kind of 2 to 3 years, because it's like any market. When it's scaling, this is the time to get in terms of its high growth phase.
Yeah.
So when I speak to clients who are looking at, I want to eventually build out a portfolio, it's like, how can we build that out sooner, but really make sure you're comfortable financially by utilizing those payment plans that are kind of interest free.
Right.
And then I think the second part to your question was, do you keep it in one market or do you expand across different markets?
Yeah.
I would say, look, I specialize in off-plan real estate in Dubai, but what I do think is Dubai is a city that caters for pretty much everyone. So whether it's families, professionals, it's got business hubs, it's got tourist areas that are waterfront communities, villa communities. You can diversify your portfolio quite extensively in one given location, so to speak, across different asset classes.
Yes.
So whether that's short-term, long-term, rental yield, passive income, capital appreciation, you can diversify quite well, even commercial.
Yes.
Because during COVID, obviously there was a lack of demand, so the supply has really gone down low, and now it's kind of pulling back up again as more and more companies and businesses are moving out here. When I speak to most investors, they've invested heavily in the markets they're in because people are comfortable with what they know.
Yes.
And when they're kind of venturing out to Dubai, I suppose it's like, okay, I'm taking a bit of a risk on a different market. I think if you've got experience doing it, do it. But I think if you are expanding your portfolio, there's plenty of opportunities within certain markets.
Absolutely. Yeah. I didn't even think about that. Like you mentioned, Dubai it's great for tourists, it's great for families, it's great for single people. So it ticks off all those boxes. Like potentially most of the markets I invest in are tourists markets. So they have to have tourism all year round. So I wouldn't go into those markets and buy a 3-bedroom villa for a family because, it's a local market. It's probably not, the revenue or the passive income is not as high as I would get from short-term let. So that actually makes sense for Dubai. It gives you more opportunities across the board. But there's something you touch on as well, which is commercial properties. I know nothing about investing in commercial properties, but what would be your thought on investing in commercial properties? Are they as lucrative as residential properties?
It always comes down to scarcity. And I think kind of touching on your earlier point about, someone who's kind of risk adverse, where would I advise them to go? I think commercial can be complex in terms of, the long-term contracts you want to secure and the other costs that are associated with it that you'd have to take into account. But one thing is definitely kind of happening at the moment. There's a real lack of supply of commercial units. So with the right opportunity, with the right kind of infrastructure in place, whether that's in a financial hub, Dubai recently actually changed one of their kind of regulations where a company that's set up in the free zone can operate from anywhere. It doesn't need to operate from a free zone.
Yes.
So that kind of opens up, and this is again coming down to the government being very commercially minded. They saw a bottleneck there in terms of, okay, the free zone, it's difficult to find commercial space.
Yeah.
We don't want to stop companies wanting to come here and set up here.
Yeah.
So how can we kind of expand that out? So I think what we'll see over the next 2 to 3 years definitely is more commercial spaces coming up.
Okay.
Again, as always, very important to kind of look at what's the infrastructure, what's actually coming to that location, metro stations. You can see very quickly in terms of what the planned metro station is. D33, which is the agenda, is basically a 10-year roadmap of how they're going to expand the economy and how that's going to tie in with population growth and everything else. So I think with all of that information to hand, it's very, it's actually a really good map in terms of where to invest.
Okay, fantastic. So I'd like to understand, given your perspective and your insights into the market, what trends should we expect to see over the next 12 months of 2025 going into 2026 when it comes to real estate, both commercial and residential? Are there any risks? Are we in a bubble? Is this the right time to invest? These are the sort of questions when I sit with my friends, everyone keeps asking. Is the market as good as it should be? Is it overinflated? If you can clarify some of these myths from your own perspective and your insights in the market, what should we be looking forward to in 2025 going into 2026?
Yeah. So in my opinion, look, real estate runs in 18-year cycles. That you can see that from back in kind of hundreds of years. It's basically, it runs in 18-year cycles. Each market has its own cycle. We are in our growth phase.
Okay.
So it will peak.
Right.
And something else I'd caveat that with is there's money to be made at each phase of the cycle, just knowing what to kind of invest in.
Yes.
Now, in 2024, there was a huge surge in transactions. I think it was like 169,000 transactions just in 2024. And with that came a lot of studios and one beds coming onto the market. So in terms of, say, a price correction, or if you say like a bubble, in certain areas, in certain kind of unit types, possibly yes, there will be. So, when people are kind of risk adverse, they want to go in, they want to test the waters with a smaller investment like a studio or a one bed. So there might be an oversupply of those. There's obviously different kind of handover schedules, and these things kind of impact how much supply is coming onto the market. But what there definitely is a lack of are villas.
Okay.
2 to 3 bedroom units, kind of across the board. So when clients come to me and say, okay, I'm risk adverse, I want to invest in the market, but it's kind of a bit too good to be true. I always go back to my kind of age-old scarcity is your best friend. Right. So, waterfront communities, waterfront units are always going to be high in demand. That's what people come to Dubai for in terms of lifestyle, whether that's even holiday or even short-term lets. And just pure preference, people will want those as an end user. Yeah. And then families, there's over 220 international schools now. Those schools can't just be, they're businesses in their own right. So the new schools keep coming to the area because there's such a demand. Yeah. So with that come families who need villas. Yeah. So over the next kind of year or two, you'll see what we've already seen, rental prices of those villa communities kind of going sky high. Okay. Because there's not enough supply. Right.
Okay. So you feel that the hot cake over the next year or two will be villas and waterfront communities, but it might kind of peter out once we've got the demand sorted, once we've got
Yeah,
the supply sorted, rather?
of course. It's
Okay.
always the case.
Okay. Okay, fantastic. So I'll take it from you. Don't invest in one bedrooms. I'm just joking. I think, to be honest, I think the one bedroom studio apartments work very well for short let.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a huge demand for those, because people, especially if you're a couple or you're single. So I think across the board, it works. Like you said, certain communities might reach that sort of that peak.
Yeah.
They've all been rented out, the price is maxed out, and then certain communities are up and coming as well with newer development. So again, the pricing in those communities may go sky high because there's just so much demand coming for it. Okay, but that's interesting to understand that we just have to keep our eyes on different communities and different things. But villas seem to be what may be on the rise.
Definitely.
Okay, fantastic. I think, we're coming towards the end of the segment, but I just wanted to touch on this point here. Earlier when we spoke, you talked about how you were empowering people to make informed investment choices. Is this coming from a personal purpose for you to help people invest, and how do you want to impact your clients, people that you work with, when it comes to making the right investment?
So I'd say although my title's investment consultant, I really see myself as a connector.
Okay.
So in terms of someone who's completely new to the market, wants to understand, it's not just that they just want real estate for maybe themselves or investment. It's kind of like an end-to-end. They might be interested in everything else this market has to offer. So I really try and, I've networked my whole life. So trying to find the experts in each field, and I kind of connect my clients to them. So it's not really a transactional relationship all the time.
Right.
It's like I said, it's building that relationship, really understanding what they need. And then, real estate eventually might be kind of an outcome of that long-term kind of plan they have for themselves. That's where I kind of really enjoy the kind of relationship building and adding value to people.
Okay, fantastic. So we've come towards the end, and this last segment is a section we call Share Your Wisdom. And I have 3 questions for you. I ask this to all our guests. So the first one is, what's the most surprising fact that you've learned about yourself and your entire career, your journey? Second one is, what do you consider to be success? And what advice would you give to others in a similar line of work as yourself?
So the first one was, what's the most surprising thing I've learned?
Yeah.
I think this market has forced me to basically cut out the fluff. Let's say, so all of the white noise.
Yeah.
Just use the facts, the data. Obviously, like I said, clients have different personalities. There might be an emotional element attached to every kind of decision they're making.
Yeah.
But I find my job to kind of arm them with all of the information.
Yeah.
So I think where the marketing and everything else is a key thing here in Dubai, I like to kind of cut through it all, which it wasn't something I used to be like before.
Okay, interesting. All right. So what were you like before?
Like before, I was an operator. So
Okay.
it was as a operations. Like when I was heading up operations, I used to have to do a lot of stakeholder management and really kind of manage people's kind of feelings and get the most out of them and everything else. And that still is a big part of what I do and has kind of set up a good baseline.
Yeah.
But now the kind of clients I'm talking to, like they do just want kind of hard facts and they just want to understand, what it is that they're buying into and what's the investment.
Absolutely. And what do you consider to be success?
I'd say time.
Okay.
So having the time to do whatever it is you want to do and managing your own time, I think is a huge kind of success for me.
Yeah, and I totally agree. It managing your own time equals freedom to me.
Yeah.
So no, absolutely. And I think that's something we're all striving for,
Yeah.
to be free. That's why we do what we do, to be financially free. And what advice would you give to others who are in a similar line of work as yourself?
I think I see it all the time, and I hear other people when they are training people up. And I would say build relationships rather than your pipeline.
Yeah.
So actually understanding what that client or investor wants, needs, and is comfortable with, that will kind of set up the relationship in a way that they actually trust what you are saying, and take that on board rather than just getting that kind of transaction done. I think if you build that relationship and really build that rapport with someone, then the pipeline kind of comes anyway.
No, listen, I 100% agree. And even my line of work, what I do, it's all about relationship building. Find out who the real person is. Find out, about their kids' names. Get to know the individual, right? Because it pays dividends. And from my personal experience, I mentioned Shola earlier, and he's my broker, and I was dealing with the company. The company he was working with for months on the first property I wanted to get as an investment property. And the person that showed up was another gentleman who was just buy now kind of thing. And for like a year and a half, I was interested in the property, but I kept ignoring this guy because I didn't know anything about the market. I didn't get the numbers. And then one day, this new guy came and reached out to me, and it turned out to be Shola. And he was like, yeah, this is why the property is good, and this is what the risks are, and this is the numbers you can expect, and this is what you can do. And he built a rapport straight away. What do you do? And over time, I think about 3 to 6 months later, I invested with him. And we still chat on WhatsApp, and we still exchange greetings and stuff like that, and talk about things. And he understands my long-term plan because I shared it with him. And I remember recently I just invested in a property in Indonesia, and I'd been following the company, the developer, for about 7 months. I'd send me your brochures, send me payment plans, asking them questions about the laws and things on WhatsApp. And one day I got a message from Shola, oh, we got this property in Indonesia. It turns out to be the same one from the developers.
Okay.
Right? And I told him, okay, cool. I'm already talking with these guys. You start negotiating it for me.
Yeah.
And I gave it to him. And they were like, oh, yeah, but we started, I said, no, I know this guy. He's the one who's going to do it for me. And, he was the go-between when the contract came out, and I didn't like this. I'll tell him. And we went back and forth, and he organized. He took his time out. It would have been easier for me to negotiate a deal with the developers straightforward, but it was kind of like I built this relationship with this guy. I built this trust with him. And so it was kind of like, okay, I was halfway down. These people had sent me a draft contract. And then he sends me, hey, by the way, there's this property. He didn't know I was talking to them. I'm like, I'm already talking to them. Here's the contract they sent me. Can you start negotiating? And I just put the deal in his hands. So to your point, I see this every day with brokers here who tend to just don't want to build a relationship with you, just want to be transactional. It does pay dividends to build that relationship. It pays dividends for me. There are people who I've done things for that I've never asked anything, but at some point they will remember you. And so when you do come to do business, it pans out.
Of course.
So I think that's great advice to share.
Yeah.
Now we've come to the end of the episode, but thank you so much for your time and your expertise and sharing your insights with us on the real estate market. And if anyone is reaching out and interested in getting some more insights, we'll be able to connect you with Nav. And look forward to hearing more from you in the future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.